Good morning. We're back at you with gloves off, and today we have a special guest, Pendenkar William Sanders. We're going to be talking about Silat. Silat is a martial art from Indonesia, and everybody looks for Silat because of its combativeness. It's blade-oriented. So it's at one time it was a very elusive art to find in the United States, and because of Pendenkar Sanders, it has grown, and the other families have brought it in here. So now Silat's a little bit more open in the U.S., and people can find it with a little bit more ease, thanks to these gentlemen. Good morning, Pendenkar. How are we doing today?
Good morning, Professor Paul. I'm fine, and I hope you and everyone who's listening is fine.
It's a great day this September. You know, we got some bad weather. We pray for the guys on the coast of Texas, people in Houston,
Absolutely.
Rockport, and everybody else. We pray for the folks in Florida that are going to get hit with Irma. And above all, let's not forget the guys in Oregon and Nevada and Utah and that are dealing with the wildfires over there. We're getting hits.
Yeah, I'm just looking out over nothing but smoke, so I understand.
So hopefully everybody's safe. God bless America at this time of need. Explain a little bit, what is Silat for the world out there? Some people know, some people don't. Explain what...
Well,
Go ahead.
Silat is a generalized term that's often used in the Malay Indonesian archipelago. It's actually composed, at least in Indonesia, of two terms, Pencak and Silat. And the differentiation between the two words were and are that Pencak described the movement, the delivery system of the kicks and the blows, what you might want to call, some people call the dance-looking aspect of it, or the fluidity of it. And the Pencak was always referred to as the combative, actual application of the moves in self-defense and fighting applications.
Okay. I've heard many differences. I've heard pukulan. I've heard terms within the Silat, because, you know,
Well, pukulan just means hitting. A pukul is a punch.
Okay.
So pukulan itself, it was never an actual art unto itself. It was a definition of a particular art that mainly used striking,
okay,
rather than parrying. So if you have a pukulan art, you have a hitting art, not
okay,
a grappling art, let's say.
Okay, that's good to know. No, because I remember the first time I ever saw Silat, I was in France. And when I taught at ISPTT, and I had a club of Savate Boxe Française in France, at the same location, they had different martial arts, and they had a Pencak pukulan system. And then they also had some gata from the Sikhs, and they also had several different karates, and of course different boxing or ring arts as well. And we were doing a demonstration to bring in people at the local mall over there, and Châtelet, and I remember the instructor came out. It was he was a Hindu man. He was Indian of origin. I guess he was Indonesian, and he was talking about Pencak, and
I'm
was
not hearing you now, Paul.
He's not hearing me now.
Now I heard that.
You heard? Can you hear me now?
I'm fine now.
Okay. Now what happens is that what he was showing at that time was very much hard blocking and hitting and very, very aggressive. Okay. Then, you know, it was very interesting, but he had a large group of more, how can I say, you know, I was in my 20s, so at that time he had a group of guys that were in their 40s and 50s training. He did not have any youngsters, you know, it was just a club based on more adults. And it was basically more of a close, we didn't really see that many French, but you saw more of an Indonesian ethnic group that was there. You understand?
Right.
How is it here? Was it kept more of a family at one time? How did you get involved, and so on and so forth?
Well, when I was, of course, I had a background of wrestling in high school, and then I amateur boxed. And I'm sure, as you recall, in the 70s, there was a lot of television exposure with Bruce Lee, and particularly the Kung Fu television series.
Correct.
So I became interested in finding a martial art And of course, like everyone else at the time, I was looking for Kung Fu. I didn't find anything that particularly interested me. Since I came from a fighting background, I wanted to see something that looked like I could use it and it was interesting. I was in college in the West Liberty University, and I was sitting around one day and I heard a radio broadcast of a rare combat Asian martial art demonstration to be held in Wheeling, West Virginia. And I thought, that sounds interesting. I'll go see what that looks like. And when I went there and I saw the way this art moved, I hadn't seen anything like that before. And they coined a term which is still accurate, fascinatingly deadly. And I saw that and I went, well, I don't know what this is, but I want it.
Right.
And that was the start into the Wetzel lineage. That's how I started. My teacher was John Walter. He learned directly from Willie Wetzel. Mm-hmm. And that is the art that I stayed with from 72 till about 84. And there was some other things that happened in between those times where I got exposed to other Indonesian teachers. So the Wetzel art was quite contained at the time, basically to the East Coast. He was in Beaver Falls, PA, so he had Wheeling, West Virginia, Beaver Falls, PA, and the surrounding Steubenville, Ohio area was where the only place that art was. And it was told to us that it was a combination of an Indonesian art from this guy, Mas Jut, who practiced with a Chinese guy. This was the story. Practiced with a Chinese guy by the name of, they said, Wee Kim Boon, and that was the Kung Fu catch. So nobody knew what Silat was. If they would have put up a sign, Penchak Silat, and my teacher even told me that, somebody would have thought it was an exotic restaurant. They wouldn't have even shown up.
Correct.
But when they threw the Kung Fu Chinese
mixture into it
in there, yeah, and so I knew what that was, and I said, well, this isn't exactly Kung Fu, but it looks better than any Kung Fu I've seen. So I'm going for this, and that started my journey into Silat, which became quite a long-term. It didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, actually, because in the 70s, Pendenkar William, who was sent to the United States from Indonesia, from their martial art organization, which is the IPSI, to promote Penchak Silat in the country. He was, at that time, the official representative. Started to advertise some clinics in New York City.
Correct.
I happened to be in New York City, and I saw the advertisement. I called, and I went back. And I actually took my teacher, John Malter, with me, who was interested at the time in seeing what this was. And we talked to him, and he started to explain to me some things about the art. Well, where's the jurus, and some different things and jurus are basically upper body. For those that aren't in Silat, if you want to call it a form or a kata, or it's an upper body series of movements that are designed to block and strike. Let's put it that way. If you use your legs and you walk, then they call that, and maybe strike, they call that a lanka.
Lanka.
But yes, but we didn't have some of that stuff, and so I became real interested in, well, what part of this is Indonesian, what part of it is Chinese? And I wound up going to Indonesia numerous times, but with Pendenkar William at first, because I didn't have it. I was the first American who went to Indonesia at that time to investigate Penchak Silat.
Yeah,
and
you were a pioneer.
Yes, I was. I was the first one. And everybody thought I was crazy. I mean, you have to understand back then there was no internet and there was no real wide-scale basis of passing information around. So to the people back in Pennsylvania and West Virginia, me going to Indonesia was a highly dangerous thing. They thought I was going to be killed over there or something. And it's like, well, you're crazy. I said, well, I want to go. Now, I originally went thinking that I was going to find the real, more meat on the story. Like, I'd come back and say, I found out where Wee Kim Boon was born, and I know Mas Jut, supposedly died in 1930, and here's what I found out about him. And
that's an interesting, if you don't mind me interrupting, that's an interesting name, because Mas Jut, I've heard that from the Serac side of things, that he was Masjid was around, and in their history as well.
Masjid was actually turned out to be a guy that was used, and I'm going to use the word used in the harshest sense of the term, to develop a story for a variety of Silats in this country that were all from Dutch Indonesians like Willie Wetzel,
Right.
and Willem Reeders, and the Detours. They all used this name Mas Jut. So I thought, well, you know, there's got to be a connection somehow. They're all using the same guy's name, right? So, but the stories were quite different. Willie Wetzel's Mas Jut was a guy who, like I said, practiced with Wee Kim Boon for 3 years and developed this Chamindi, not Chamandi, but Chamindi system that he called it, that he taught. The Detour's Mas Jut was a one-armed Bedouin living in a remote area that nobody could go to, who learned from a guy by the name of Pa Sarah. And the Willem Reeders Mas Jut was a guy who just taught Willem Reeders along with another Chinese guy, Ling Su somebody, I can't remember exactly the guy's name.
Right.
But they were all different, but they all had the same. So I said, well, I got to crack the puzzle.
Figure out who Masjid was, you know, kind of figure out what.
Who was he? Who's this Wee Kim Boon guy? And you know, why is everybody using this? And it's all different. And you know, so anyway, I opened up a school in about 1981 in Washington, PA, and Joffrey told me, well, call what you're doing. He says, because you know you're going back to the old roots. So call what you're doing, Pukawan, Chamandi, Pusaka. You got some Chamandi in there, but there's other stuff in there too. And Pusaka, he told me to use that because he said, this is now your system. This is your family art because you're going back to the old roots and you're trying to pick out the right things, and it's going to be your system. So Pendenkar Joffrey actually named my art at that time, Pukawan, Chamandi, Pusaka, until I put my name on it later for reasons that we'll get to. And then, you know, when I when I heard some of these other stories, like the tour stories of the Serac guy, Mas Jut, I thought, well, if I can't find Wee Kim Boon, I'll find Serac. So when I asked about Serac, they kind of laughed at me and said, well, that means sore throat. There's no real art of Serac in Indonesia. But many years later that I ran across Pendekar Mama Sukarma in Chamandi village, who I found out that Serac was really Sera, S-E-R-A.
Right, Sera.
And yes, Sera. And Mbaka here, the guy who they give the credit for putting together the Chamandi system, that was his first system. It was a monkey-based system. The old arts had animals in them.
Right.
And that's another thing. We had the Willem Wetzel system maintained the tiger, snake, monkey, and crane, and naga, or
the dragon.
The king. Yeah, it's like a mythical king snake dragon. It's part snake and part dragon. If you look at the head of it, it's got a crown on it, so they call it the Rajanaga for king dragon, and then it's got like a body of a snake. And in the Wetzel lineage, that represented the culmination of all the animals together, so that you had a mastery of all the animals, and when you moved with somebody, they couldn't really see. They couldn't look at you and say, well, you're just doing tiger or snake or monkey. It was what they called unfathomable or mysterious.
Correct.
So it became combatively more effective since your opponent couldn't figure you out.
Now, let me interject there. You're talking about animal systems and stuff like that inside
Yes.
Styles. Just like in the Chinese arts, you know, you have a lot of different kung fus that were basically different animal systems. You also have a snake and a crane and so on and so forth. And you're also telling me that your instructor's teacher had trained with a Chinese man. So you have a lot of cross-training way back then.
Well, actually, that's what I found out was, and this is quite interesting.
Okay.
And I found this out from, and you have really no idea the amount of footwork and travels I had to do to interview people who were in the prisoner of war camps with Willie Wetzel. There was no Chinese guy.
Okay.
So here's the kicker, and we didn't know anything. I mean, you know, we're in West Virginia, Pennsylvania. I'm going to college, but I don't know Chinese, and I don't know Chinese names. I don't know anything about Chinese names. Boon is not a Chinese name. Boon is a Dutch name.
Right.
It comes from the root of boon, B-O-O-N-E, which is a Norwegian habitational name from a common farm name. The farm means farm or meadow. So and the Wee Kim was largely, the spellings were different. Under one spelling, it was Wee King, K-I-N-G, Boon. Now, I've recently, and this is very recent, I have recently come to find out that it wasn't a Chinese guy at all. It was a guy from Siam, a Thailand guy. Okay. The old Thailand arts, prior to the Khmer Revolution in the 30s, when they sportified them and made the sportified Muay Thai. Correct. Just like the Indonesians sportified Silat and made Parizaduri. To get rid of the animal influences. That was under the direct influence of Islam, get rid of animals. Right. So the Muay Thai, so prior to that, their family systems were called Jern, J-E-R-N-G, and it simply means fight. Now, how I found this out was one of my close friends who gets a lot of my material sent me a videotape from Thailand. He said, "This is a very old art, but take a look at this movement." So people send me a lot of stuff, and I'm looking at it, and I almost fell off my chair when I looked at it, because there is the movements of the Wetzel art that we were, the advanced movements of the long range system that we were taught. I'm watching Mas Jut's bow. I'm watching he had a system in his art called Sarah Depak. It's a version of Sarah. Depak is the area, the region of Indonesia where these different Sarahs came from. His was from the Depak region, so it was named Sarah Depak. So here I'm watching Sarah Depak drills. I'm looking at them practicing on a diagram on the floor that I have in my book, The Real Penchak Silat History of Mas Jut. And I'm seeing them work on a larger diagram on the floor that looks just like what the Ditwars were using. The geometrical patterns came from Siam. His real name is Unkunbun, O-N-G-K-H-U-N-B-O-E-N. It's a numerative noun, on, for kings, princes, angels, palaces. So the king variation, we King Buin, was actually more correct. Kun, K-H-U-N, means sir or lord or master. That is the Thai language.
Go
ahead.
We're coming into a lot of things. So the way I got into Silat and the cross training with Silat was I did a seminar for Savat in Los Angeles, and we went to go buy some equipment with the people that I was with. They went over to the Lineage Sports Center, the one martial arts supply place over there, that big store. And when I was walking outside, I bumped into Victor Detoire, who just passed away, and may God have him in peace. And what happens was that we bumped into each other, and he read my shirt, and it was a Savat shirt, and he started talking French, and I responded, and we became friends. Okay, and he invited me to go see his school because they were just opening up a school over in Bellflower, California. And it was a grand opening. They were having a little opening over there at that time. And the next day I went out there because the people that I was with didn't want to take me, so I got a ride. And he sent one of his students to come pick me up, Ron Miller. I don't know if you ever remember him. And when I went in there, Ron Miller. And
I know who you mean.
And when I walked in there, I saw the patterns on the ground. And I told him, yeah, you know what? We have that, but ours are standing up. My uncle taught me standing up. So that has always intrigued me because the Sipota has patterns, Silat has patterns. So these patterns at one particular time probably were from one art that is no longer around. But
the Thailand art is actually around. It's very old. The oldest written records are 700 years ago, but it even predates that. And see, what happened was we had this fluid movement, and even when I went to Indonesia and trained with Pendenkar Mama's Chamandi and all these other arts that I was trying to put. See, I was trying to we put back the real art of Masjid.
Right.
And the real, okay, but our problem is, like one of my students says, our movement stood out in Indonesia like a unicorn. We had this fluid, fantastic movement, and they became very stiff and robotic. So I had to apply my delivery system to the Sida Druze, to everything that I did to basically improve how the art fought, so it wasn't just another Gojaru Silat.
Right.
And I studied a lot of other body mechanics, the golden mean, how the body moves in spirals and waves, and I applied all this principle through all the joints and the back. The back has to be flexible to the blows. I applied all that to my movements, but the base of that fluid movement I now see comes from the Juring system, and the strikes and everything. They took a lot of that from the Silat systems.
Right.
But like I said, the Silat systems after Islam kind of invaded into Indonesia in the 1400s.
Okay.
Late 1400s. The last great empire in Indonesia was called the Majapahit Empire, basically from 1293 to 1499, 1500 in that time period. And when that happened, a lot of people who were fleeing from their oppression went to Bali, which is why you have a big Hindu base in Bali now. And if you want to see what the Majapahit Empire probably looked like closer to anything else, you go to Bali.
Correct.
They took a lot of, that's getting bad now too. By the way, there's too many Muslims getting in there and burning down churches and doing what they do. But when they took over, they started to eradicate. Indonesia was the first part was they were shamanistic. Okay, so and then there was a shamanistic Hindu Buddhist belief system behind a lot of their martial arts.
Right.
And believe it or not, there was Christianity too. Christianity came to, albeit small amounts, came to Indonesia in the 1st century through trade through India. Most people don't realize it even today. It's the second largest religion in Indonesia, although by numbers it's very small, but it's still greater than the Hindus and the Buddhists that are there.
Right.
And when they had these other religions and beliefs in shamanistic, they were free to copy the animals, to use nature to improve their martial arts, even their weaponry. For instance, the kris, a ethnic blade of Malay Indonesian archipelago, which you can actually see or trace the belief systems by watching the change in the design of the blade through the generations. Originally, they had, for instance, Hindu gods on the handles, and they had things on the blade like the Rajanaga. You'd see a single barong, like a line type of a figure.
Right.
You'd see all these mystical animals, and as the Islam took over, the handles became plain and just almost like a caricature of a human head that's kind of bent over. The blades became less combative and more plain, and the martial art became more robotized. They wanted to make it humanistic. This was more complicated by the Japanese invasion in World War II, where they took a lot of the young Indonesians, threw them in prisoner of war camps, and forced them every day to practice Japanese karate. Well, these young guys got old, obviously, and they were teaching, and so they start to throw the karate kicks in there. They had to figure some way out of making it work with the humanistic aspects, since Islam took away all the animal aspects. And Joffrey, even as late as the late 70s, when I knew him, was thrown out of the IPSI. He was vehemently fighting against them taking out the animals. This was during the birth and the propagation of Persidaria, making it a sportized art where they just wanted it to be kind of whatever you want to call it, generic.
Generic term.
And
kind of like wushu.
Because of his fighting to keep the animals in there, he was eventually tossed out.
Right.
Whatever you have now. Go ahead.
Talking about Joffrey, whatever happened to Joffrey? Is he still in the States or no?
No. That's a somewhat of a mystery, but probably only to a degree. Joffrey is dead, as far as everybody knows. Well, he is dead. If he's not dead, he pulled off a really good fake death. But when he went back over to Indonesia, he mysteriously died. His brother was killed. His brother was poisoned. And we think he was found, as far as I can tell, and I never got any really good information, he was found incoherently stumbling down the street, not knowing who he was. He was taken to his brother's house. At some point in that time, he passed away from something which we think is poison also. Understand that if you're not following the Islamic tradition in Indonesia, you are in peril.
Right.
The Mas Jut himself was considered an Mbangan. An Mbangan was a term coined by an anthropologist to describe the class of people in Indonesia who outwardly maintain the Islamic facade and mix it up heavily with the Hindu, Buddhist, shamanistic, ancient beliefs that they had before in order to survive. So he was being chased all around Java by a radical group called the D.I. Suara. It's kind of a radical Islam group. And I have in my book all the different cities that he was forced to move from one place to the other until some mayor brought him under the protection to let him stay there. By the way, Mas Jut didn't die in 1930. He died in 1990. That's another story for another day, but that was another cover-up on the big story. I know
Right.
I found Mas Jut's family, his sons, were still alive, even his wife. I know
That's
everything
interesting.
that happened to Mas Jut. I know what he taught. He did have all the animals. I know who taught him. He was taught by a guy named Mr. Holla, who was a Dutch guy at a plantation when he was in his teens in pre-World War II. Interestingly enough, the 1930 date that some of them use as a story, including Willie Wetzel, that Mas Jut died in 1930, is the exact date that the Thai revolution had started to occur, and they were kicked out of Thailand, and some of them fled to Indonesia. And interestingly enough, I'll just throw this in there for the people that have been paying attention to the Thai connection. Some years ago, I received a 3-page handwritten letter from I don't even remember who sent it to me. It was kind of like not really good handwriting, but it described in great detail how a Thai family was thrown out of Thailand, made this perilous journey, wound up in Java, and it was the basis of the Willie Wetzel art. Nobody had ever said that before, and I looked at it and laughed at it. I said, well, where did this story come from? Nobody's saying this. Thailand? That can't be right. I kept it for a long time until we moved up here, and I was just getting rid of a bunch of junk, and I threw it away. And I actually put on my website, which is www.chamandi.com, a note that if anybody reads that, and they're the ones who wrote me that letter, please contact me again. Because I'm sorry I threw it away, and I dismissed it because I found out it was actually true.
Yeah. There's a lot of, when I've talked to, and you as well, talked to Uncle Bill, William Buitrón, and he also talks about how many Chinese left from the Boxer Rebellion and went into Indonesia. Some of the old Chinese art, some of the old Kung Fu arts or fist arts that were used by the Chinese when that came of age. And
sure,
it kind of makes sense, They ran from the Boxer Rebellion downwards towards Indonesia. The Burma and the Thais left because of that. So it makes sense. So number one, they were running away from what? Communism?
Communism. Well, the Thais were definitely running away from communism. Probably the Chinese too. I don't know what they ran into. Indonesia, has just gotten more and more hostile as time's gone. When I went there in the late 70s, it was quite friendly.
Right.
I didn't feel at peril at all. I was completely ignorant to the differences between what they believe and what we believe as far as it being a problem is concerned.
Right.
But they have become more and more radicalized as time goes on. And even the last time I went there was 2001, I believe. And when my wife and I landed in Yogyakarta, my friends who came to pick me up, I said, no, you got to wait there for us at the airport. And I'm thinking, why do I have to wait there? Just trust me, you got to wait there. And they picked us up with 3 pickup trucks with armed people. And they surrounded our car and took us to the hotel. And that's the climate that was occurring there even then. And after we left, not long after, I was told that a group had gone into the very same hotel looking for Americans, and there were a few in there who were taken out and never seen again.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Tell us what happened in the U.S. because I know, and a lot of people are out there listening. And we've probably those that are not martial artists or martial art enthusiasts probably got lost along the way, but it's all right because this show brings out what the arts are here and what it does to the communities. When I met Victor, I started seeing that Silat was around, right? Where everybody knew that Silat existed, Pencak Silat existed, and you used to see a type of individual that was looking for Silat. You were seeing a type of person that was either in the special forces. That was the art that they were training. You have, how can I put it? And I'm going to break it down. Over the years, you have different martial arts that have attracted certain groups of individuals. In the 70s and 80s, a lot of motorcycle gangs would go into the Kempo arts. Plain and simple. If people say, no,
Sure.
that's true. Wait a minute, I grew up in Kempo. And so you used to have a lot of guys that did motorcycle gangs, from the Bandidos all the way up to Mongols to the Hells Angels, and they did Kempo.
Right.
And then you had a group of special forces type of guys would flock towards the Silat, and you and I can agree with that. You had a lot of FBI and agents of that nature that would either go to the Escrimas, or they'll go to the Savat, or they'll go to the Silat kind of range. Understand what I'm saying? And in nowadays, what I'm seeing is I'm not seeing the old special forces going into Silat. I might insult a lot of guys, but I'm going to be straightforward. I see a lot of geeks that sit behind laptops doing and searching for Silat, and all of a sudden now claiming that there's something or other that most of these guys couldn't even fight. They've lost something along the way. Understand what I'm saying? And the same thing is happening to many other arts. I have seen a movement in the last year and a half of a type of folks that have been, how can I put it, been led astray, not led astray, because you see a lot of converts into Islam coming out of a lot of these Silats here in the States and across the globe, actually. They go into Silat, they train, and all of a sudden you have a convert. What's going on with that? Or what's your idea? What's your intake?
Yes, okay. So it depends on how gullible the teachers are. And unfortunately, in the United States, there are quite a few that have become gullible. Basically, the liberal mentality, just accept everything, allows them to be drawn into this, because what happens is they are bringing in a lot of people, newer generations, younger guys from Indonesia, who are more into the jihadi, radicalized mindset. And they lure them into the idea by telling them that it's an internal training aspect of the art. Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, I've seen all of this, and I've been given the internal books that they have. I've thrown so many of them away, I could start a bonfire. I kept Pendenkar Mamas, I got Pendenkar Sartonos. His wasn't so bad because it was based on a guy that actually originally came from Bali. But most of them are evolved around the 99 Islamic names of God. Now, just like we didn't know Boon was a Dutch name back in the day, when they're saying Bismillah Roman Elohim, and they're saying all these 99 names of God, which the teacher tells them gives them all these super magic powers, they think they're just saying some mumbo-jumbo, magic, Indonesian, mystical thing. And they don't realize that when they go a little deeper, then the teacher tells them, well, no, that's, this is a holy name of Allah, and the holy name of this, and the holy, well, how do I find out more about that? That's interesting. Well, here, read this Quran. This will explain a lot to you. And if they take the bait, then they get drawn into the whole thing. And then they get radicalized very slowly in that manner. They have to uphold what the teacher showed them. They can't turn their back on their teacher, which is why in my art, people have attack me, that I've turned my back on my quote-unquote Islamic teachers, and I have to be very quick to tell them. Well, let's see, John Waltert was a Christian. Willie Wetzel was a Dutch Indonesian. He was a Christian. Pendenkar Joffrey, I don't even know what he was. He never talked about it, but he took me to Pendenkar Sartono, who had an internal thing that came from a Balinese guy. They're Hindus. Now I had Pendenkar's Mama, who definitely was Muslim, they gave him crap for teaching me. And he told me that he told them he didn't care what I was as long as I believed in God of some kind. All these arts came from original spiritual beliefs of where you grew up and
exactly
what you believed in the country that you were in. If you were Hindu, you were doing Hindu things. If you were Buddhist, you were doing Buddhist things. If you were Islam, you're doing Islamic things. I'm not any of those. I'm an American. I have American values, and I was raised, and I am a Christian. So my internal aspect of my art is based on ancient mystical aspects, and that's what it's going to be. And that's why I added my name and American Penchak Silat on the end. You will not get radicalized if you come see me. I know the difference, and I've been down both paths. Because they tried to give me the same thing. They handed me the Quran at one point too, one guy, and I just gave it back to him. I said, no, I'm not in. Actually, that's not true. I got to be honest. I took the Quran, and I read it, and I was horrified. And then I threw it away. So you got to be careful. You got to really, really be careful now.
That kind of comes into us because many arts, and especially in not the Occidental arts, the Oriental arts. A lot of the Oriental arts have a headmaster somewhere along the line. Okay, whether it's a sensei of some sort, or Sigong, or a Sifu, or what have you, or Pendenkar, or whatever. You have a head guy, a head grandmaster. Let's put the term grandmaster. In the Occidental arts, you don't have that. You have somewhere along the line, you have some kind of technical director, and it's just open to everybody. And I'm going to associate this with Savat, because when I grew up with Savat, and I was in France and Savat, hey, wait a minute, a lot of these gyms, most of the people that did books from Savat were Muslim. Great guys. A lot of them I call my brothers. And you did not see a force of that. Why? Because it was a control situation. Everybody respected each other because of what it was. It was an open arms. You respect me because I respect you, because I know you're training with me, and so on and so forth. A lot of us parted bread. Great friends I made. Great folks that I can call brothers. When I went back there the last time, I could not even go to certain areas of Paris. They told me, you can't go in here. We have to pick you up and take you in a car. I'm like, really? A lot of, how can I put it? In Savat, you have a professorship. They removed that, so now you just have a national instructor. Okay, these were done by the federation, so you didn't have that power. The professors kind of were removed in 2006. So the professor at that one point was not like he could give the rank, he could do what he could go up to what he was allowed to by either a guild or a federation or a body that allowed him to. Unlike the arts of the Orient, that all of a sudden you can force somebody to do something that they're not in belief with, or guess what, my teacher's my teacher and he's the whole master next to the Almighty. And that's not the case here. But what happens is that a lot of guys that are in now, a lot of the clubs that were of Savat, of some of these neighborhoods that became, I hate to use the term radicalized, because I was explained the term radicalized at one time, in the suburbs of Paris that were very much from Arabic cultures, okay? They moved. They're no longer Savat. Now they're Thai boxing. Now you're starting to see a mixture of a Savat, of a box Thai, kickbox Savat, that they use the fundamentals of Savat. They use the fundamentals of Thai and some other arts that have come of age, some of the Penkaks that are there. So how can I put it to you this way? It's not as seen so much in Savat, but it is seen here in the States, in in the Silat realm, actually. You know, that conversion, that type of force mentality between several people.
Well, everything that I teach is Christian-based. I have a Cossack combat whip that the Cossacks were the defenders of Orthodox Christianity and still are. I teach San Miguel, Italian-based martial art, which, of course, San Miguel is St. Michael.
Mm-hmm.
And I teach some Irish stick fighting, which, of course, is, Ireland is not Muslim.
Sure.
But I just brought up Ireland to give you an idea of what's going on. I had to kick a guy out that was was my top guy in Ireland some years ago, because when I was over there, well, there was many reasons, but this was the main one. I'm over there. I'm sitting in a car with him, and one of his other guys. We're driving along. And he tells me that he's starting to teach this class at a mosque. Of course, my ears perked up right away. They're teaching at a mosque. He goes, yeah, and he starts to tell me about the guy who's got all these students. He's purportedly was one of the guys who fought against the Russians in Afghanistan during that time period. Mm-hmm. And he asks, according to this guy that I threw out, he asks him, can you teach me Silat, and can I use these techniques to kill Americans? Just wrap your head around that for a minute. Now, here's my guy sitting there, and I'm waiting for him to say, I kicked his ass out the door, I said it was horrible, and he goes, sure, I'll teach you. And I go, I'm not even going to bring his name up on the air, but I said, what the hell? Why did you say that? He goes, because he's going to pay me a lot of money. I went home, and I threw him out.
No, but you see, that's what happens, and that's what happens here. I don't care where you're at. You know, we have bad elements, and we have, as instructors, we have to kind of vet those bad elements from going into a school, starting into that. But I'm seeing this more and more throughout. I'm seeing this teaching of a different violent to be used for violence. That's not what this is about. In other words, a martial art is a neutral bound, right? It's a straight line. One does it, the teacher teaches it to do good, and he's going to do good. But then there's some teachers that are going to teach it to do bad. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is.
There needs to be a moral structure, and that's one of the reasons that some of the religious beliefs were quite good. Along with it is they taught a moral concept and right and wrong. Of course, you have a bad belief system coming in there that tells you need to kill everybody to go to heaven. Then you have a big problem. But even the Thais, the old Jung system, all these fluid, beautiful moves, every single one of them was some type of a prayer. Mm-hmm. All these systems have or had at one time a belief in a higher power, a spiritual power, that you were a force for good. And martial arts were always intended to be something that was designed to get you through life in one piece, intact, protect you and your family, and hopefully, in some manner, prepare you for the afterlife.
Yeah, exactly.
In order to when you're using it to defend yourself, you're using it to protect life, your life and your family's life, and then you have to do it with the utmost prejudice to keep yourself and your family alive. One of the things that brought me to Silat and interested me in this a lot is some of the weaponry aspects of it, but the practical weaponry aspects. And what I mean by that is the knife and the sword. And I'll explain why the sword's practical, but the knife aspect of it, the most practical thing that I think that I've learned in my Silat is accurate and applicable knife defenses, which mostly are a complete joke and will get you killed in almost everything that I've seen, because everybody always works against a static opponent that's just giving you a predetermined slash or thrust.
Correct.
They teach you to grab them somehow and try to wrestle the knife away or lock the guy up. And the only thing that I've ever found that works in real life, which I have had real-life experiences with this too, is a very short, fast hitting technique that it's like this missile system that we're trying to put up to stop North Korea. He launches a missile at us, we launch a missile and take his missile out. We're not up there trying to grab that missile or wrestle it around, so we're going to blow it up right in the sky. And you got to blow this guy's hand up, you got to blow his arm up, and it's got to be fast, accurate, and precision. You have to practice, you have to be taught how to do that. But if you can do that at the same speed he attacks you, you have a chance, just a chance. Knives are very dangerous.
Yep, exactly.
Probably going to get cut They're probably going to get cut anyway.
And
But
that's
you have a very good chance to get rid of that knife with this type of a defense, and that's the only one that I've ever found that works well.
no, you're absolutely correct, and that's what brings danger with Silat, in the sense that those that learn it can do good with it, and those that learn it and their intent to do bad, they're going to do bad. And that's why and number one, I want to thank you for everything that you've done for this martial art, especially bringing it out from Indonesia and bringing it here to the States. And congratulations, and we applaud you for being the pioneer, an American that went to Indonesia and brought this art back. Because we have many Dutch Indonesians that are here that became citizens, that are American citizens. Great names. Stephen Plink is one of them. That's an excellent guru, and we have many. But I want to thank you for keeping this art alive, bringing it together, teaching Americans how to defend themselves, and we applaud you for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Paul. And once again, I want to just let everybody know that anybody who comes to me is, we have a moral-based, Christian-based, ethical system, and if I find out that you're anything that doesn't agree with that, I will not teach you.
That's the way it is.
So you've got to be, got to be a good guy.
Yeah, exactly right. So again, we're running out of time. Until next time, I want to thank you so much, and stay out of those fires and keep safe.
Thank you very much, Professor Paul. It's been a pleasure, and I hope everyone's at least not been too bored by my talk.
No, it was an excellent interview. It was actually excellent history. A lot of stuff that was not known. Okay, again,
thank you.
Thank you. Until next time, here in Gloves Off, we'll see you soon. Be safe.